my privilege to be here this morning at the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport. As you know, we are now in a space where tourism has pretty much ground to a halt, international travel has ground to a halt, and we're dealing with, in some cases all around the world, the collapse of several economies that are tourism dependent. And so this is an interesting and perhaps most challenging time to take up the portfolio of tourism, but it is perhaps also the most exciting time to be able to do that. And if memory serves me well, I remember when I was a young foreign service officer, I was being transferred from headquarters to Washington, D.C., and I was supposed to be transferred on the 29th of September 2011. And right after September 11th, and I remember saying to my then permanent secretary, P.S., are you sure I'm still going to Washington, D.C., to the U.S. of all places, right after September 11th? And she said to me, then what I say to myself, no. When the challenges are before you, that is the most interesting time and the most creative time to cover any issue, and certainly to cover any sector, and you're definitely still going. So I am looking forward to taking up the challenge of tourism. I'm confident that there is a strong team in the various agencies that fall under the Ministry of Tourism, and also obviously the direction of the government of Barbados, as led by Prime Minister Motley, has made it very clear that Barbados has to go in a new direction. We've seen that with the Rocky Summit, we've seen that with some of the other initiatives, and I think we will have an opportunity to retool, retrain, refashion, upskill, reposition, re-strategize, create new tactical approaches, so that by the time international travel gets going again, Barbados, we're hoping, along with the team, the exceptional team that is here at the ministry that has all this experience, and those who will come on board and add voice and perspective to this issue, that Barbados will emerge in a space that we could not have anticipated as a result of the challenging time that forces us to be at our most innovative. So I'm looking forward to the challenge.
What's going to be your first order of business?
Today, getting to know everybody. I think the advantage I've had being chairman of the port for the last 2 years is that certainly from a cruise perspective, I know many of the players, but tourism, as we know, is much broader than that, and I think that's going to be one of the key challenges that I intend to tackle first, looking at tourism in all its aspects. Cruise, long stay, and then looking at some of the areas that have been critical for a really long time. If you're looking at many of the studies that have come out of the various development institutions, sport tourism, heritage tourism, cultural tourism, all of the various aspects that are about economic development in its broadest sense, how do we make those things pop and vibrant and then contribute to Barbados' development? One of the other things that we want to also make sure is that we are able to include Barbados. One of the things that Prime Minister Motley has spoken extensively about has been things like the democratization of finance, the access, greater access to, I'm sorry, we've got to pause this. Greater access to enfranchisement and inclusion of all Barbadians at all levels. And so when we think of tourism, a lot of times, the conversation oftentimes is narrowly focused on certain persons and certain players who are in the sector. We want to make sure that everyone understands that they have a stake, they have a role, and they are meant to be beneficiaries of the tourism sector. And so one of the things that we will be doing is looking at those linkages so that the housekeeper in a hotel property understands that you are a stakeholder, so that the person who is maintaining the gardens in one of our attractions understands that they are a stakeholder. I know that they already do, but we as a government have an obligation to ensuring that they feel that that's the case in a meaningful way. And so from the top to the middle, all through what people perceive to be the bottom, that is our tourism sector, and that's one of my first priorities, to making sure that everyone understands that they are a stakeholder and not just a service provider.
You mentioned various studies. Will you be pulling out those studies and looking at implementing any recommendations from those studies?
Absolutely. I think you have to remember that I am coming from an academic environment as well. Coming from the University in the West Indies, I'm coming from a consulting background as well. And one of the things that I've always spent a lot of time with in every area that I've worked is looking at the research. I believe in empirically made decisions. I believe in being guided by assessments, by surveys, by future visioning. So I'm very much going to be looking at the work that has already been done, not just here in the ministry, but in every forum that has been writing extensively. So there's a lot of work that has been done on so many areas of tourism, and I'm going to be looking at all of them and spending time figuring out how we can work particularly with our research institutions to get the research that will help to guide us into making solid decisions in the interest of Barbados' tourism sector.